I'm Shweta Agrawal. I am one of the founding member and startup advisor at Gilder and also chapter lead. But more than 15 plus years, I've been in product tech and AI space. I've been a startup advisor for more than 10 plus years. Different stages of the companies, I help them with go to market, product market fit, storytelling. Tons of founders who are already in the growth and the mid stage, they're going to the VC. So, how they can approach. And that's the whole point we're going to be discussing today, the product market fit and the go to market, and then how you can, if you're looking for funding, how you can do that. I've been judged on many local and global pitch competitions. So when I see those pitch, it's how you can really hook someone up in a minute. It's very important. So we're going to talk about that as well. um, I'm one of the chief AI product officer at Boston New Technology, and a co-president at Product Cam, where we bring in product executives and the leaders. Yeah, that's a little bit about me. Recently got recognized as 40 under 40 and Mayor's Award. So super excited to see how the work is making an impact and helping founders to achieve what they are doing. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Shweta. And so the goal with these, I think we've got some new faces here from this is, as you guys know, like every quarter we host a different innovation roundtable. And so we have Lyle Wickersham joining us, who is gracious enough to host our January Q1 session, Diana Stepner, who hosted Q2, and then Shweta, and then Francis Pratt, who will be doing Q4. And so the goal with these sessions is to continue to build on each other each month from, in this scenario, July, August, September. Obviously, the goal is if you can make all of them, the better that it will continue to build. But the mission here is to keep these generally very collaborative. These are separate from our executive workshops and interactive workshops, where interactive may be a little bit different because that is very in depth. But we want people that are open, of course, are comfortable sharing what they're building, their current stages, questions they have, relevant to their product and their stage, because it's not just Shweta, it's everyone else in this room, right? That's using that as that space to be able to help one another out. So again, I know it's the first one, and we have some new faces where this might be your first ever innovation roundtable. So again, open and honesty. It's a safe room here too. So that's always the mission: is how we can really help each other tackle those problems related to Shweta directly and her conversation, but everything else. So maybe if you wanted to do a really quick, just around the room of what some people are building, that might be helpful, and then we can kick off right into the slides. But Shweta, if you want to kind of lead and start with that, and then we can either just go around the horn or however you want to take it.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Brian, because I love what you said. I talk to founders day in, day out, every day, right? Different stages, industry agnostic. So I help founders on different industries, given I have product, AI, tech, and startups, worked in different industries as well. And as Brian said, be open. Sometimes as founder, we feel like we have to be successful. Otherwise, I'm not going to be sharing the challenges I'm going through or the hurdles I'm going through. I want these sessions to be, I want you guys to share what your challenges are, what you have done, what you have tested, because this is really going to be the whole thing about this roundtable interactive session is how we can find out what you're struggling with, how we can get to the next milestones. With that being said, I would love to get a sense of, who the founders are in the room. So maybe, I don't know if you want to put in the chat or just say like, what industry or domain you have. That will give me a sense of like to have those questions and plan the session. So maybe a quick round, say your name and what industry your startup is in. I think that will do, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's perfect. And maybe we'll go, James, not to put you on the spot, but figured would ask you first if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I'm James Nelson. I'm the CTO co-founder of PG Cache, and it's in database performance software.
Awesome. Thank you. Colleen.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be quick because I know there's some background noise. I'm in the nonprofit space and the women's empowerment space. I'm trying to close the economic power gap for women entrepreneurs, which is $5 to $7 trillion annually.
Amazing. Thank you. And then I'm kind of dropping in the links from everyone's organizations and stuff too. And I know, for some people like Brittany or Bonnie, where people are off camera too, feel free to use the chat. But yeah, we'll share more about that. Thank you. Lyle.
I run a consulting company here in New York called BrandThink. We are funding advisory and capital strategists. We come from both the brand development and the investment banking world, and our focus is on working with startups, early stage businesses, getting them investor ready. I'm an executive mentor here at Gilder, and really proud and happy to be part of this great community. So,
Thank you, Lyle. Appreciate you. Sean.
Hi, my name's Sean. I'm the founder of Supply Forge. We're an Amazon distribution business. So we reach out to brands and help them sell on Amazon and improve their listing. And I have some cool news. I'm starting a brand new startup for a SaaS company. I built a software for people that do what I do, which is selling on Amazon. And we're going to publish it. And yeah, so that's in the early stages. And that's also very exciting.
Amazing. Well, congrats, and looking forward to learning more about that. And I saw Brittany and Bonnie both also shared in the chat. Bonnie's at Roam Lead, Brittany's at Insightful. So got a good group here. And then also this session, of course, with all of our other ones that you can view for Lyle's in the past, Diana's in the past, they'll be recorded as well for internally, of course, just here within Gilder. And so for anyone else who is catching up on this for future sessions or want to reference it, we'll share that out as well after. But yeah, with that, Shweta, feel free to kind of take us off, and we're excited to get going.
Yeah, I love it. I love that we have different founders from different industries, and this is amazing. I love the diversity and different. So let me share my screen, and then we can kick things off. Let me see here. I'm
And then at
share.
any point too, let us know. I'm sure there's going to be sections for questions and things like that
Yeah.
for the conversation. But if you have things that come up, feel free to ask in the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. The product market fit stress test for founders. I've already, shared about my background, but people who are joining right now, I am Chief AI Product Officer. My background is in product, tech, AI, and startups. I've been a startup advisor, and mainly I help them with product market, go to market on the tech side if they are going to the investors, how they can grow and build attractions. Been involved in amazing communities. I love what Gilder is doing. So I'm also one of the founding members and startup advisor and chapter lead in Boston. So I'm in Boston, and super excited to see different founders at Gilder community. With that being said, I'm gonna move on to the next. So let me get a sense of in the room who all understand what is product market fit, or if you have heard about it, you know what it is. Maybe unmute yourself, put it in the chat. Do you know what is product market fit means? Don't be afraid, if you don't know, just say, we don't know. If you're like, hey, I have a little bit of understanding, there's no right and wrong answer. Yes, okay. Leslie, he knows. Yes. Anyone else? Have you heard of product market fit word or know what it is?
And a
No?
good question too that I have, because I do a lot of talks on that. PMF kind of means a lot of different. It could be different stages for a lot of people. And I think one of my favorite graphics, like Lenny's newsletter, which Diana got me on, is they always share a lot of good product insights. And a really cool slide, which I'll find and share after, showed like when different companies felt like they had product market fit. So you have a lot of Slack, Canva, a lot of these companies where they said 5-6 years in, they felt like they did is when they finally achieved product market fit. And obviously that's a luxury that not every founder has, because getting product market fit typically means sustainable revenue and being able to pay yourself something or grow the business. But it is crazy how that's evolved, especially with AI now and how quickly people can build products. So what does that kind of defensibility of the PMF mean?
I love that, Brian. Thank you for adding that. Because mainly with the AI part you mentioned, I see tons of founders. It's great, like whether they are tech and non-tech founders, right? Different backgrounds. It's very easy now to prototype and build a website or an app. But you can do that in a couple of hours, right? Nowadays. Before it would take like 6 months to 8 months. You have to invest money to give the developers to have something tangible, right? But now once you have that website and the mobile app, what's next, right? There are no customers, no one is paying for those apps and website, and that's where the product market fit comes in. You can develop hundreds of apps in within a week, right? But if no one is using it, it would not make sense, right? And to your point, Brian, So Diana, I think she had talked about the product definition, product development. So you guys have already gotten to know, like, okay, I have an idea. Now I want to build something out of it, right? So you start building, you start, doing some, Figmas, you create some mock-ups, right? You think like, this is how it should look like. This is the product should work like. Now, once you have that idea of how my product should look like or work, before you even create the product, right? Before you even have a prototype, what I mean by prototype is before you even have a website or mobile app, you really need to understand and talk to the customers. And I'm going to talk that in a minute. But for folks I know, thank you for sharing. And trust me, I was in Silicon Valley 2 months ago, and I was talking to them about go to market. And people were, very honest, like, we have heard of it, but we don't know what exactly. So this is what it is. This is what we're going to do, right? Because as a founder, you really need to understand what is product market fit and how you can apply that, right? And these are some famous definitions from Mark Anderson, who said like product market fit means being in a good market with product that can satisfy that market, right? You're building something that people really want. The Brian one from Growth Expert, who's a founder of Reforge, product market fit is when a product is able to attract and retain users at a sustainable rate when users start pulling the product from you. So if you have heard of Clubhouse, I'm sure you might have a couple of years ago, right? Within, like, it was tremendous scaling, right? Word of mouth, organic growth, right? They had within months, within days, because it was invite only and people really wanted to get on the platform. They had that traction, they had customers, they had people on the platforms, they were running so many sessions. But what happened, they could not retain the customers, right? So you want to have a product market fit is nothing but you want to have your product in a way that people will come to your platform and they stay on a platform. They don't, leave your platform after a month or 2 months, right? And Sean Ellis, product market fit is the moment when a product starts selling itself. So this is organic growth. I'm not going to be reading all the definitions, but you get a sense of what product market fit is, right? Then there is another one, which is very interesting to me, is like Ben says from product market fit is the only thing that matters. And that is true. If you have amazing product, if you are solving a real problem, but you're not able to identify who your real customer, your ICPs are, it's going to be very hard to sell. And what I mean by that, let me give an example. So I was talking to this founder, and for a year, they thought their ideal customer or ICPs are B2B. And they were trying to reach different enterprises, large scale companies, and they were not able to get them on their platform. We had the conversation. I'm like, what are you trying to do? And they were like, this is what we're trying to do. And I'm like, your customers are B2C, consumers directly. And when they shifted, when they pivoted, they saw great growth within 6 months. So even if you have your product, if you don't know who you're selling to, you might not scale, right? It can happen. And we'll talk more about it because you might have customers, you might be targeting for students, for professionals, for elderly folks, for enterprises, for customers. There are so many different range, right? You really have to nail down who you're selling to your product. So um, can anyone tell me, as we went to, you might have read this definition, any of the definitions that resonates with you more? Or do you like, oh, now I understand what product market fit means? Anyone?
Sells itself.
I'm going to chime in. To me, product market fit is you're selling things and people are happy. Whether you realize it or not, you have product market fit.
Yeah, see, there you go. People are happy. I love it. When you are selling something, even if you have seen like those in summertime, right? You feel people are selling fruits, people are selling cupcakes, and they just go there and they have those stalls, right? But when you see someone is, create, they have like a big line, juices or smoothies, right? They just go there to sell, like, okay, today I just want to sell this quantity. But what product market, when you start selling, like if you sell ice creams, juice, smoothies in summertime, it will sell because there is a fit, like it's hot and people want to drink something cold. Whereas if you, I mean, I love ice creams in winters too, so I will definitely eat it. But if someone is trying to sell juices in fall time, it would not scale as much. It would not sell as much as in the summertime, right? So really understanding where and how your product can sell. So thank you, Michael, for that. In that case, so moving on, this is what I think product market fit means is when the customers love your product so much that they can drive its growth. And as you are starting off, let me know in the chat as well if you are bootstrapping, if you're in early stage, meaning you have some revenue already, or you got some funding, you have some capital, right? If you don't, then when you are bootstrapping, right? Let's say if you're in early stage, you're bootstrapping, you have limited capital, right? You're like, oh, 5,000, I want to use this so that I can attract customers, right? Sometimes you have to pay certain amount, whether you're interviewing the customers, whether you're doing marketing, whether you're putting some ads, you have to invest some money, right? And that is called customer acquisition cost. Without doing that first step, it's sometimes hard to get the customers on your platform, right? I've seen founders, they're giving $50 gift card just to interview the customers, right? To get the feedback, because initially the feedbacks are really important, right? But product market fit is nothing but it's driving its own growth. So for example, WhatsApp, uh, that's a messaging app, and Telegram as well. I don't know if you have heard of Telegram, but um, when it came out, people started using it. Was only in a limited market, right? I think in the US, but then it started growing in India. So it started creating its own growth because people started using WhatsApp as messaging, creating apps, creating groups. It became sharing documents. So it became like a mini version of Slack, right? So that's what it's driving its growth. I'll give another example of Dropbox. I'm sure like you might have heard of it uh, and used it in the past. So when Dropbox came in, I think it was 2008, so a long time back. It was very hard for Dropbox. It's a cloud storage company, right? When it came out, it was very hard for them to get the customers on their platform to start using it. What they tried to do, and it was very expensive to do customer acquisition cost, right? I think they have to spend at least around $200 $400 per customer to get on the platform, which is big number, if you're just starting off, right? So they thought like how we can come up with a solution that can bring the customers by itself. We don't have to spend a lot in the marketing, in advertising. How can we scale and have that retention of the customers? What they did, the strategy they used was, they if you are an existing customer, they said if you invite it, so they use a referral program, right? If you bring another referral, we'll give you 500 MB storage free, and your referral will also get 500 MB free. And during that time, 500 MB was big. So that drove a lot of growth within a couple of months, right? So this is just an example of how you can think when you have achieved a product market fit is when customers are bringing their friends, their family, their connections on your platform. And there are a couple more examples I'm going to give down the line, which will give you more sense of like different stages of the company and how they did that. Thank you, Elena. So Dane said, sorry if I'm butchering your name. We initially bootstrapped, then raised for a V1, completely different product now, though B2 focused and focused on continuing to grow through existing revenue from. Yeah, see, that's amazing example. Thank you for sharing. So you realize if you're not getting that traction, if you're not getting those customers on your platform, how you can pivot to get more growth, right? And that is what most important for the founders. Sometimes when I talk to founders, they are sometimes, I would not say most of the times, but it's very hard to listen or get a no, right? They're like, no, this is what I thought. I know this is my customer. This is B2B is my customer, or B2C is my customer. I know this is the product. I know this is the market. You can have some, I would say, milestone or timelines for you, right? In 3 months, I'm going to test my product. I'm going to see if people are buying it, people are liking it, what traction you're getting. And what I mean by traction is like, are people signing up on your platform? Are they ready? If it's a freemium, like 1 month, if it's a paid one, are they paying for it? Even if they're paying for a month or a 2 month, are you able to retain them, right? Are they ready to sign up for next 6 months, next 1 year, right? That will show you how your product is performing. If it's not, you have to rethink and pivot. So thank you, Bain, for sharing. James, you're bootstrapping. Okay, so we have founders who are in the early stage, and this is great. So PMF is product market fit is something you really have to nail it down. You really have to think about it as you're starting off your product because you want the customers, right? And this is all about the customers. People think that product market fit is like, oh, you know what? At the start, I found my customers, I have attraction, I have a couple of customers paying money, I've achieved my product market fit. It's not a one-time event. It's not a one-time testing. You have to keep on checking your product market fit every 2 months. I would say every month. It's not like, because with the movement, how fast the market is moving, how fast the customers' needs are changing, and the competitors in the landscape, you have to keep on testing what functions, features my product people are liking or not, right? So think about product market fit is an ongoing thing. It's not one time thing. And you may ask, like, Shweta, okay, we get it. A product market fit is important for us to really understand what customers want and how we can, help it to grow. But why it is really important, right? Uh, so these are few things which you can think about, right? And shows your business idea is viable and resonates with the real market. And what I mean by that is, I was talking to a founder, and he had amazing idea. And what happened is, he was focusing on, and it was related to. So I think someone, James, you are from data, right? Data company, and he had the data company as well, data startup. So he was focusing on 10 different ICPs, 10 different industries, right? And I was like, 10 different industries. So he was like, yeah, I'm going to see what sticks with the boom. So he did not have a clear ICP. And that's something you should not be doing as a founder. You really have to, that shows me you have not done the research. You don't know. He had solution, but he did not know what the problem was. He did not know which customer had this problem. And if you're going to be focusing on 10 different customers from 10 different industries and see which ones will like, you're not going to be able to sell your product. You're not going to be able to scale, right? So you really have to hone down who's your ICP.
So for me, has been a super interesting ride. So when it comes to that, I mean, I'm building a product that should solve exactly this problem and help founders solve that problem. But I saw myself exactly in the same situation, that niching down feels like a step backwards, but it's actually a step forward. So if you're capable of being extremely specific about one small niche that has been really a difficult exercise, but very relieving when I managed to do so, because it then becomes very easy down the line to really define what are the real problems of this very, very small niche. And yes, you might have fewer customers overall, but they will resonate a lot better with your offer. And it will become a lot easier to get feedback and really act on it, because if you try to appeal to everyone, all sorts of feedback will come in and you will not be able to know what to prioritize. So that has been, like I said, I have been niching down. But the funny thing is, then the person that I'm offering the service to is not the person where I go to market, right? So so that has been my challenge. But anyways, it's, I can suggest, like, to anyone who's starting new, is to be extremely specific, and everything comes down later on much easier.
And I know it's tough, because I think we're trained, or it's counterproductive sometimes, especially if we're raising. When you talk to investors, like, they want to be able to see this enormous Tam Sam sum. They want to be able to see, oh, this is, I need to get an 100x on my investment, right? This can't just be to one industry or whatnot. But at the end of the day, the goalpost keeps shifting, especially with, as we said, how easy it is to build apps nowadays. That, the pre-seed fund, is now looking for, oh, you need to have 100,000 minimum ARR. You need to have, this retention rate, and so on and so forth. And as that continues to shift, you can always go back and expand, but how do you break that beachhead, as Christoph was saying it, with those champions, those super users and power users that initially will be the ones that start, selling your product for you, and telling people that, hey, this is what I'm using. It's so great. This is why I'm using it. You should try it. And that's kind of been the learning piece there.
When I have a question. Sorry, this goes to both of you, because you mentioned the investors, and I think that is indeed the core fear that everybody has, that I will not be investable when my money runs out. I'm bootstrap myself, so I feel the pain there as well. So, but I can only imagine, and maybe your experience with investors, of if you a good investor will know that this is the right way to build a product, right? Not by having $1 trillion market TAM, but more of a small time, but that is actually doable, right? That you go down some and your sum is small, that this is just a proof of of the product market fit. What is your experience on investors reacting to smaller numbers in this time zone?
I love this question. Thank you for bringing this off, Kev. And I work with investors, so I do see the founder side and investor side as well. So let me give an example. So when the investors, if let's say you're trying to raise money, or down the line you're like, I want to work with an investor. Few things, right? Investors really look for the founder, right? The first thing, they're like, can I trust this founder, right? So as a founder, you need to have conviction in your own startups, right? You need to have understanding of your own startup, what you're trying to do, right? So they look for the energy of the founder. They're like, you know what? And another point is, I have seen investors where they have invested in the startups, which was only idea based. So it's an idea stage, right? They don't have the prototype, they don't have the product yet, but they know the idea that they're trying to solve a real problem, right? To your question, Christoph, I know traction, people talk about traction like, oh, you have to have certain revenue, ARR, customers. But the right investors will invest in you when they see the potential, right? So another thing investors really look for is the potential. Even if you're on idea stage, and I have seen this happens, so it's not like, oh, will investors invest in me when I'm just starting off? If you show what and how you're solving the problem, yes, they will. The fourth point is, yes, some investors, and you really have, and I would say this, it's one-on-one, right? This two-way thing, meaning founders I see sometimes they change their whole product value, the value prop, the whole product, just because that investor can invest in you, right? So that's not the right approach. I don't want you to do that. You want an investor who believes in you. They're like, hey, Christoph, I know what you're doing. Here's the money, do it. And that's all you want, right? Don't change your direction just because that investor can invest. It's not going to last. It's not going to sustain down the line, right? I would say, last thing I would say, Christoph, is if like, okay, I want to show traction. Yes, and again, I'm trying to recall like what stage and how much customers you have. But if you can explain me, like what problem and what is the solution. And nowadays, I've been seeing founders, they're talking about, "Oh, I have AI model in my product. I have AI powered." And investors like, what you're talking about, how you're using it, right? And they have no answers, right? That's when investors losing the interest in your startup, right? So there are so many metrics, but last thing I would say, and I'll let Brian add if he has few things, show that you can do it, show the potential, right? I was 2-3 months ago, I was judging for the Startup World Cup, and the discussion was more of like, and it's competing with like different countries, different regions, and we have to pick one founder. When you have this big scale of judging, you think of like what's gonna grow within 1 year, 2 year. Do we see this idea is gonna solve real problems and it's gonna scale? We don't ask like, oh, do we have traction or not, right? We see like, okay, 5 years down the line, does it have a potential? So, but that being said, Brian, do you want to add something?
No, no. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. And I know Diana hopped in for a little bit, but would also be curious for Lyle's kind of perspective, since Lyle's helped raise, much more than I think I have through my tenure. But I'll look at it from the angel side. So for those, like I used to write a lot more angel checks. I maybe do 2 or 3 a year now. Again, small sizes, so mine's not going to lead around or change any impact there. But it's for me, it's always like, yeah, does the founder understand who actually is the major adopter of this? It's not going to be, okay, great. When you look to enterprise and years down the line, when, all right, this is going to encompass like Slack. I think these are kind of ballpark figures, but I believe like 95 or 90 to 95% of the revenue comes from 1% of their customers. And so like, a lot of you here, whether you use Slack or Discord or different ways for your own team, like most of us are on the free plans because it does most of what we need it to do. But again, when you look at your building for your customers, users are always great because then again, it shows validation for what you built, but we already know how hard it is to get people to download free apps and free platforms. Then you have to get them to use it and consistently use it. Then you have to get them to pay for it and consistently pay for it. And so there's kind of these 3 layers of things you need to happen to build that sustainable product market fit. And you're not going to be able to do that with all levels. So as Christoph said, and what you said, Shweta, to pick the one that really gets those early adopters, and you can build around that feedback. And that's typically what we've seen, even if it might not be, the original archetype that you thought when you first launched, that will certainly evolve, and certainly would love to hear Lyle's thoughts on it.
Yeah, in my experience, there's always a fair amount of market testing involved to refine your product market fit. However, in the last period of time, I've seen, investors look for much more responsible economics. So if you're going to present just an idea, you better have a really clearly sized market with a definitive problem, with a solution that's really addressing that so that they can anticipate the potential market fit. And, the freemium models are risky if you don't have a problem that you're solving that requires an upgrade to a paid version, then there is a product market fit problem. And in general, that's not really the only criteria. You got to have product market fit, and you got to have a team that proves that you can execute on that idea. So there's a lot of variables that work together with product market fit to be investable. So
That's a great point. Thank you for sharing. Team, yeah, you brought a good point. Team. So I don't know if you guys are any one of you put in the chat if you're a solo founder or you have a team of 2 or 3. But investors, as you know, saying early, they look for the founder's conviction, like, can I believe, can I trust this founder and the team, right? Because if you have experts in your team from that particular field, if you're, tech company, right? Do you have people from tech background? Because that will make them feel like you know what you're doing, right? Um, as Leslie mentioned, business model revenue generation, right? Even the TAM SAM is small at the moment, right? What they look for is, what's your revenue generation, right? Can you generate the money? Let's say if I invest in you, can I get my money back in 6 months, year, 2 year, whatever the timelines looks like, right? I'll give a quick example and then we'll move on. So I was talking to this founder last week, I would say, and Christoph, to your question, and this founder was asking me something similar. So he had, and it's a healthcare company, and he is working on the rare disease. Um, and he was like, should I go with this rare disease where I have tons of customers, like it can be heart disease or any chronic disease, right? Which it's a lot of potential. So that's TAM, SAM, SOM, like it's a huge customer base. Versus he said there are patients who have rare disease, only once in a million. One patient in a million will have that rare disease. Should we go with that? Because he said that they're getting funding from them. Investors are ready to fund them because they can research on this rare disease, right? And I'm like, how are you going to sustain, right? You will get the initial funding. It can mean 20,000, 50,000, whatever that is. But you do your research and that's it. You're not able to grow. You can only grow 10 rare disease and that's it, right? 10 patients, 10 rare disease. I'm not saying it's not important. It's very important because it's very rare. But as you're initially growing, he wanted to pivot just because he was getting the money from the investors for that rare disease. So don't do that mistake where you see you're getting the money and you will shift the whole thing, right? You really have to tap into the market. The last thing investors will see in the market, are there any competitors and how you're doing? Value prop is something different, how you're standing out yourself, right? So that's something, and we'll talk more about it. The second point is driving customer acquisition and the customers. As we touched briefly, think about you're not spending too much money, but you're retaining your customers. You want to bring in the revenue, right? It can be very small amount. And I would say do the research really in the market. There was one founder and interesting story. They early stage, they were building, how you can track your steps, right? So they're building something to track your steps. And I asked him like, what's your pricing looks like? And he was like $80 to get the subscription. I'm like, $80 for a month. And that's a big cost, right? No one, and I'm like, have you done the research of the pricing model, right? No one would buy. And he was like, oh, I have 20 customers. I'm like, great. Your 20 customers are paying $80 every month, which is amazing. I'm like, who are those? And he said, friends and family. So friends and family, they will be nice to you and they will have your platform, but don't, because they're not going to tell you the real problems, or they're not going to be spending they're not your target customers, right? It's initially, yes, they will get on your platform, but you really have to start getting real feedback from real customers, right? So that's one thing. Uh, if you are bootstrapping, how can you allocate, right? I have seen founders investing 5K, 10K initially to do the marketing without them having the product, right? If you're in the healthcare space, if you need FDA approval, if you're in software space, data space, spend time before investing in the marketing space. 10K, like, oh, ads, like, okay, if you do the ads and the marketing. If the customers come to you, what product do you have? Do you have even checked what your customer want, right? So don't spend a lot of money initially, right? Really understand what the customer wants. Attract investors' interest before expansion. So one of the founders I was talking to, and they were like, "Oh, you know what, Shweta? I'm getting tons of investors are reaching out to me," and he was in the idea stage. Okay, so it was only 2 months he was just working on the idea. I'm like, how they are reaching out to you? Your platform is not ready. It's not live. They were like, oh, they just see that I'm building something. I'm like, so your connections are, or your friends are bringing investors in. But again, what happened. He was talking to investors in, and the investors like, you don't have anything built. You don't have. It's just an idea phase, and they would just go away, right? So try to talk to the investors when you yourself are ready, when you know what you're doing with your product and the customers. Um, and this will touch base, as I said, like marketing and sales comes when you have the POC, proof of concept, when you have an idea of who your customers are. Um, moving on, so this is just I did like a small bucket, right? If you're building your product for B2C, um, this is like, for example, Netflix and Instagram, right? This is directly for the customers, right? Then there's a bucket of B2B, which is mainly on Slack and Salesforce. I know Brian mentioned the Slack example, and I love that example because they pivoted a lot. I do have an example I'm going to share with you. And there are certain times you have a marketplace, right, where you're building a product for the sellers and the buyers. In this case, it's Uber and Airbnb, right? I would like you to think about, later on, if you're so B2C and B2B, right? What differentiates them? The consumer's product needs virality, right? So, one example I can give directly is I love matcha latte. I love coffees and chai. So I was following this Instagram follower, and she would go to different coffee shops, and she would just, talk about which coffee she likes, which, cafe and matcha latte was good. What happened was, because she just posted about matcha latte, she was building the followers who are also lovers of matcha, right? And she had, I think, around 500,000 of followers. And what she did, now she have target audiences. Now she knows these people love matcha like her. She launched her own product. And when she launched her own product, which is matcha latte, it was sold out within 3 hours or 4 hours. She did not have to spend or do anything crazy, right? She built that community. She built that platform for her, and she was like, you know what, there's a problem. I can build amazing matchas. So think about that, right? The virality, how can bring the audiences, the network you have, for your benefit, right? B2B is enterprise buy-in. I know it's very hard to get the approvals, to talk to them. See how you can become so attractive, your startup, your idea, that the enterprise want to talk to you, right? Early and the late stage startups, everyone is thinking of PM, product market fit, right? You have to really hone down how you can achieve that. And I've seen this mistakes founders are making. They achieve it and then they stop testing. Like, I have my product market fit. As I said, it's not one time thing, right? And 6 months they were like, you know what? I thought I had customers, but I'm not growing. I'm still there. I'm stagnant. I'm like, product market fit. They're like, yeah, I've not done that. So if you want to scale and achieve go to market, right? And we'll talk go to market next month. But even if you want to scale, like say if you're in Chicago, if you're in New York, if you're in Boston, wherever you are starting a business or one industry, if you want to scale, you have to keep on doing the product market fit. There are different metrics I'm going to share in a minute, but if you're in the SaaS platform, the churn rate, right? Think about, are you losing customer faster than you're attracting on your platform, right? And why you're losing it, why they're not paying the money, right? Great example of Claude, right? So I love, I know everyone is using different LLMs and everything. I started off with OpenAI ChatGPT, right? I loved it, and I started putting in stores your information, so you can just put a question, and it will, based on your background, it will show the information or gives you the information, right? Then you can't do lots of things, right? And because of that, I have to start paying for it, right? So I started paying every month, right? Now I'm like, okay, I want to try different LLMs, different platforms. So I started playing with Gemini, with Claude. Claude, as you know, if you have tried it out, it just runs out, right? You put few prompts and then you hit the limit, right? And I'm like, you know what? I love what Claude is generating. I really have to try it out more. So I started paying that. That's what happens. So it's generating, it's making the customers pay for it because I see the value, right? So you have to think in that way, how you can provide value to the customers initially, right? um, and how can you repeat it? And if you're on different platforms, and this is what we're going to talk about, go to market. Go to market is about using your marketing and direct sales and distribution channels. If you're on different social media platforms, I don't know, TikTok and Insta or Facebook, YouTube, you can create that, or LinkedIn, right? Any platform that you're in, you can drive your traction from those, and which is daily active users, monthly active users. Let me know in the platform. Let me know in the chat. Are you guys active on any of the social media platform that you think like you may on may find your target audiences depending on your startup? Like for example, if you're focusing on Gen Zs or early adopters, you can find on TikTok or Insta. Let me know in the chat if you know where you can find them on different distribution channels. Um,
And I'd love to hear too at some point. I know Colleen, you're busy, but you're one of the ones that pop up on my feed most. I feel like with LinkedIn. So Colleen does a good job. I feel like of the different connections, and we even at Gilder started using this tool called Meet Sona. And there's a lot of just different things. I think that's been, and we'll talk about this. I know on Shweta's go to market conversation here later as part of her series, but when we look at product market fit, they almost go hand in hand. Where we've seen that with go to market, there's certain channels that make sense based on what stage you are with product market fit. So if you're very early, for example, you're struggling to have those first 5 customers, those first 10 power users, the really early adopters, your way of go to market and acquiring those customers is going to be vastly different, of course, than the next 20 or the next 50. And those are the ones where you hear the stories of going out to the coffee shops, and your first user just like, hey, we happen to be in the same city, like, can I buy you a coffee, can we like talk about this? And with Roamly, that was one of the biggest things that we did, was just get very personal in how people were using our app early on. Granted, it's very different now. We were B2C focused for the first like 4 years, and then now completely B2B focused. But that was the biggest thing, was understanding, hey, even if people are paying for it, how are they using it? Are they using it based on what we thought was how we built it, or completely different just based on some arbitrary feature that was out there? And in many cases, not for every company, but a lot of the most successful companies, it turns out to be like a fringe feature or something that they didn't think was going to be the most popular, that ends up being the driving force behind adoption for their product. And so do whatever, at least for those earlier stages too, with those first 5, 10, however many customers, it does feel like this very grassroots type of way to gain adoption, and then figure out, all right, is this how I'm going to get the next 20?
I love that. The first customer, first 5, first 20 is the toughest one. You'll spend a lot of time. You'll go out and talk to random people, or just like trying to understand. Thank you, Brian, for sharing that. And once you get that understanding, or you have that your base early adopters, that gives you a lot of confidence, right? And this is something. And yes, as Brian mentioned, it goes hand in hand. So product market fit is like a foundation, and you're working to create your foundation, right? Understanding your customers and building your product, getting the feedback, and really understanding and honing down who and how they're using the product. And on top of it, you build the go to market, right? And then it keeps on building on top of it. So um, think about how you're driving, right? I do see in the chat, many of you are active on LinkedIn, you're active on YouTube as well, and want to expand on X and different platforms. I would really, challenge you or make you think of, if you're on these platforms, right? Um, be don't be salesy as well, but think of like how you can make people engage with your, whether you're making posts or product, right? And this question, one of the founders asked me, and he was like, you know what, I'm on these platforms. Can I just talk about my product like every other day? Can I just talk about my product? I'm like, yes, you can talk about your product, but don't become spammy, right? You don't want to come across like, oh, this person is just talking about, like, I don't try to create a post, or reels or stories where you can engage the audiences and they want. So I'll give you a quick, I just came up with a quick amazing example. So there's this founder, what he did was, um, and I'll be sharing that in the circle later on. But what he did was he was building a product, right? And very active on Insta, and he had initially not many followers. He started asking questions to the follow whoever was on the platform, like, "Hey, what color my packaging should be, right? What kind of logo should I think of? What kind of font?" What happened is like people started giving those feedback, and now what happened is customers, or the potential customers, felt like I am also invested in product development, right? And once you launched it, people just went crazy. They bought it because now feel like, oh, now I'm part of this product, right? So think of how you can engage them as you build a product. So these are just an example of the companies that you are aware of. These are large companies which we all know about, Airbnb and Slack, as Brian was talking about. How where they started initially when they were pretty new, they were early on, early stage and early adopters. They had different sets of target audiences. They did not know what the product market fit was. They struggled with it. Then they pivoted. They identified their customers, and now we know where these companies are. So just to give one example, Slack, when they came out, they were gaming companies. So they were not like a messaging or communication platform. But then as they started testing out, they saw that, oh, there's no communication platform and we can become one. And that's when Slack, if you remember, came out. Everyone was on Slack, right? And they were like, hey, and it was used for professional and personal still now. And people started inviting naturally, organically, right? You started joining the Slack groups and the channels, right? So that's an organic growth, and Pivot made them grow faster and they achieved the product market fit. You can take a look at these later on. Then I'm going to ask a good question. What mistakes have you seen companies make when launching a product? From your experience, feel free to unmute yourself, put in the chat. Have you seen that, oh, this founder had made this mistake. Now I realize, oh, I made this mistake and this is what I learned. Anything that comes to your mind?
So yeah, I have a lot of contact with a lot of founders because my platform helps them go reach product market fit. So I've seen the biggest mistake was to build in secret, right? For like a year. And it's similar to what I described before, asking family and friends or his daughter to use the app. And when I asked him, where will you find these type of these clients, and what are they using right now, and why should they use yours? Have you talked to them? And then it came out that they didn't want to hear any negative feedback, so they just avoided the contact with the potential customers, and so they never pivoted. And I think then he started investing in advertisement, and then when people went on the product, and then they would log in and leave after 5 minutes, he would not follow up with the question, say, hey, can you give me feedback? Why did you leave? So because he was just refusing to get the negative feedback, which this is what engineers often fall trap into. I think that is my experience. And that can happen also to service. People who love a certain service they want to give, and they have a very hard time of putting that on the side and say, I have to adapt, I have to not pivot necessarily, but I need to move a little bit and find the better service that actually people want.
I love that. Thank you. So you have shared so many learning lessons and so many paths, right? Founders, yeah, I know, like, we have assumptions and you're like, okay, I know what I'm doing, right? I know this is the problem. I know this is the solutions, but they're afraid to get a no, right? They're afraid, or they avoid those real feedback, right? And don't do that. Like, even though it will feel like, so Canva, right? The Canva we are using nowadays, it took like at least 10 plus years to get where it is right now. She got a no, the founder, she got no from, I think it's if I don't remember the correct number, but 250 plus investors. She got no from 250 investors. Anyone would say like, oh, no one wants to buy or invest in. She did not give up, right? She was taking the notes and she was improving her platform, right? Google Slides and PowerPoints and all those things were like still, they were the I would say the industry leaders, right? So her resiliency and her belief that no, I can solve something, and now it's a multi-billion-dollar company, right? So don't build in secret. Thank you for sharing that. I know a founder. She was also building this company, and not going out, not talking to people. And 1 year completely, she's like, I'm building the company. I'm like, okay, how many people you have spoken with? None. And I'm like, this is not how you build the company. If you're a founder, you have to. I give this task to my mentees, my founders. You have to put yourself in, every week, do something, 3 things that will make you very uncomfortable. You don't want to do it, and you will get a no. I'm like, go and get a no and tell me why. And one thing, Christopher, you said, I loved it. um, People don't take the feedback, don't take time to get the feedback from the customer why they're leaving, right? Airbnb, and I'm giving example because everyone is aware of it. Airbnb saw initially when they launched, within a year, they're like, there's no one signing up, the buyers and the sellers, what's happening? What the founders did is, like, they went to the customers and they saw that they were struggling with the sign up and creating an account, right? If they would have said, like, no, this is not a problem, this is not we should be, and the photos, they also got the feedback that the photos were not clear of the property, then they started sending out professional photographers to start taking the photos, right? Because they did those minor changes once they got the feedback, the growth was tremendous, right? In a couple of months, and now we know where it is, right? So take those feedback. Don't assume or don't avoid those feedback. It's going to help you a lot. So thank you for sharing that, Christopher. And as we move on, I'm going to share this, why avoiding product market fit, and how people make mistakes, right? So what I mean by that is scaling too early. I've seen founders, once they have the website, the product, within 2 months or 3 months, they were like, okay, now we have a product in the US. And when I say we have product in the US, meaning like 10 customers, which is not a right benchmark for the product market fit. They want to start and launch the product in Europe, right? Don't do that. You don't want to scale too early. You don't want to invest in the marketing. If you're investing in engineering, or building your product, don't do that early on, right? Take time to really hone down, and build your product and scale it within your market, right? Ignoring customer feedback. Christopher, as you said, don't ignore the customer feedback. Take it and work on it and why they're struggling with it. Focusing on vanity metrics. So have you heard of vanity metrics? Nod. Okay, so I do see some nods. So for folks who are not aware, vanity metrics are, you can think of like as a flashy metrics, right? Meaning, if you have 1 million views on your website, that's vanity metrics, right? If on Instagram you have, let's say, 500K followers, you have 30 million views, those are vanity metrics, but it's not converting to the actual conversion of your customer. What I mean by that, you may have people, customers coming on your website, you have 200, 300 views, but no one is converting to an actual customer. That is a vanity metrics, right? Assuming one-time event, as I've been telling, product market fit is an ongoing thing, right? Misunderstanding the target market, really go out and talk to the customers. I would say if you're like not sure who is your target customer, try it out, make a focus group, right? And there's a stage, we'll talk later on more. There's an alpha stage, beta, and MVP. As initially you're starting off, if you're like, oh, I don't know if it's a student customer, I don't know if it's a mid-professional or it's an early, go and talk to them and see if they're going to be using your product and how and why not. Let the data give you the guidance, the direction, and then you can start testing out, right? So start doing that. Lack of differentiation. Even if you have achieved, let's say your product is, um, if your product does not solve a unique problem, competition will. What I mean by that, now I've been seeing that everyone is trying to build some sort of LinkedIn platform. So at least 10 founders I've spoken with, they're building the same product with different tweaks, right? And as you can see, I can spot 10 founders doing the same thing. There are like hundreds of founders doing the same, trying to solve the same problem, right? In that case, in this market, you have to really think, how can I differentiate? What is my secret sauce, right? What is that customers will come to me and pay for it? Now we have hundreds of LLMs, right? Or hundreds of AI tools, but we don't use hundreds of AI tools, right? We have 3 or 4 tools that we use every day in, day out, right? So because you find something, your LLMs, AI tools is helping you, right? So that's how you want to think about like what and how you can make that product.
So everyone will get access to these slides after this that Shraddha will share in the channel on the Gilder.com site. So we'll be able to look through those, before the next innovation roundtable. And if there's really kind of the big takeaway that will help us continue those conversations, not just next month, but between, over the next 30 days leading up to that, that we can actively work on, that will be the biggest thing.
These are some metrics that you can think about how you can measure which ones you have to focus on. So this is a PMF test. So once we come to the next one, I want you, all the founders, to think about these 5 things, right? The 40% score. If I tell you like, okay, just shut off your platform, shut off your app or your website. If there are 40% of the customers who will be disappointed that the product has shut down, that means you have achieved the product market fit, right? Which means if customers are not happy that your product is not working, you have achieved it, right? So think about where you land in that. Do you have at least 40% of the customers that really like your product? The retention shape, how your retention looks like. Do you get your customers in the first month or 3 months and 6 months? They stay on our platform, they pay for it, but they don't renew it for the next 6 months. Where you are and your retention state, right? The organic pull is nothing but, are you getting organic customers directly? They get, they hear from someone else or they see you on any platform, how they're coming to your platform, right? The wallet test, meaning, are you spending a lot of money in customer acquisition cost or marketing or just developing your product, right? So think about what it looks like if there's a dollar amount attached to it. And the who exactly test, name your single most obsessed customer segment, right? And this is what goes to really identifying who's your ICP. Are you at that stage where you know now who's your target audience or customer segment is, right? So that's what I want you guys to think about when we come to the next round. And this is nothing but, once we have those grading scale, you can think of like 2 points for every 5 topics, and this is where it shows where you land. And again, you can read this later on. This will show, are you ready or are you not ready, and what you have to do if you're lacking. If you're in a bucket of 1 to 2, which is like you have not achieved your PMF. If you're at 3 or 4, you are somewhat there. What steps can you take? One thing from the sessions, I want you guys to think about: product market fit is not one time thing. Product market fit is really not about what you think you're building. It's about what the customer want, and be ready to listen to them and pivot and see how you can incorporate in their products.
Thank you so much, Shweta, everyone, for joining and the dialogue. That's always been the goal of this session.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. It was fun. Everyone was so engaging. So thank you, everyone. Feel free to, even if you have questions between now and then, feel free to ping me. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Amazing. All right. Thanks, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Yes.
Bye.